I moved to this town 3 weeks ago, hoping for peace and a slower pace of life. After everything I'd been through, starting over somewhere quiet felt right. The noise, the pressure, the non-stop running around of my old life, it had all worn me down. I wanted space to breathe again, to feel grounded. More than anything, I wanted to reconnect with the things that made me feel alive. Martial arts had always been that thing for me. I started when I was a teenager, drawn in by the discipline, the focus, the way it trained both the body and the mind. Over the years, I trained hard, competed, and eventually taught. But somewhere along the way, life got in the way. Work, family, responsibility, they pulled me away from the mat. What used to be my passion had turned into a distant memory. Now that I had a fresh start, I felt the pull again. I missed the sound of feet on mats, the rhythm of movement, the quiet strength that comes from years of practice. So I started looking for a local dojo, not a flashy gym, just a place where people still respected the art and trained with heart. After a few days of searching, I found one not far from my house. It looked traditional, nothing fancy, and they had afternoon sessions open to walk-ins. I didn't want to attract attention or explain myself. I knew how people could be once they saw a high-rank belt. They either challenged you right away or treated you like some kind of master. That wasn't what I was looking for. I just wanted to train. So I pulled out an old yellow belt, folded my blue GI, and walked through those dojo doors like a complete beginner. It felt strange and a little thrilling to go back to the start. A blank slate, no expectations, just me, my body, and the mat. I was ready to begin again, quietly, simply, with no one watching too closely. At least that's what I thought. Yellow belt, huh? You lost on your way to the beginner's class? Brad's voice carried across the room with a smug grin to match. His black belt was tied tight, golden embroidery flashing as he walked over, arms crossed, sizing me up like I was some sort of joke. Carlos followed behind him, taller and thinner, with a smirk that made it clear he wasn't any friendlier. You here for a trial, or is this just a New Year's resolution that won't last the week? Carlos added, eyes flicking to my belt again. The way they looked at me said enough. A woman, a yellow belt, walking in alone, they'd already made up their minds about what kind of student I was. I smiled politely and nodded. Just hoping to get back into training, I said, keeping my tone even. No reason to rise to their bait. I'd dealt with this kind of reaction before. The disbelief, the doubt. It was always the same when you didn't fit the mold they were used to. A woman in her 40s couldn't possibly know what she was doing, right? Brad leaned in a little. We run a traditional program here. No cardio kickboxing, no soft routines. If you're looking for something gentle, you might want to try the community center. I think they have Tai Chi on Tuesdays. Carlos chuckled behind him, like that was the cleverest thing he'd heard all day. I understand, I said, calm as ever. I'm just here to train. A few of the students nearby had started watching. Some of them, mostly younger, exchanged looks. One girl with a green belt seemed especially uncomfortable, shifting in place and glancing between the instructors and me. A boy in the corner whispered something to the guy next to him, who laughed under his breath. It didn't bother me, I knew where I stood. Their opinions couldn't shake that. Well, Brad finally said, motioning toward the edge of the mat, you're welcome to watch, just don't try to jump in. Our drills aren't made for beginners. Carlos added, might be better if you sit this one out, less chance you pull something. Still, I nodded. I'll watch, thank you. Let them talk, let them judge. That was their mistake to make. Brad clapped his hands and called out to the class, all right, everyone, let's show our visitor how it's really done. His voice had that loud, forced confidence, the kind that's more about performance than leadership. He glanced at me as he spoke, making sure I knew the show was for my benefit. We'll be going over advanced sparring combinations today, not for beginners, obviously. Carlos joined in, stretching his arms and grinning as he walked to the center of the mat. Some people think martial arts is all about flashy kicks and burning calories, like it's some kind of fitness trend, he said, throwing a quick look in my direction. But we train for real combat here. This isn't a Zumba class. The students laughed, not all of them, but enough to create that awkward pressure in the air. I stayed seated, hands folded, posture relaxed. I didn't flinch or frown, I just watched. My eyes followed every movement, every stance, every moment of hesitation. They thought I was just sitting there doing nothing, but I was already gathering more than they realized. Brad and Carlos began their demonstration. Their strikes were sharp, practiced, and clean. The timing was good, and the rhythm between them flowed smoothly. It was clear they had done this routine many times before. High kicks, rapid punches, loud kiais. It looked impressive. It was meant to. Their voices got louder with each set. "See this?" Brad barked mid-combo. "This level of control takes years, decades. You don't walk in off the street and do this." Carlos added, "If you haven't built the foundation, forget about the fancy stuff. Too many people think watching a few online tutorials makes them a fighter. They paced, postured, and corrected each other like peacocks in full display. Their performance wasn't about teaching, it was about proving something. To me, to the room, maybe even to themselves." Still, I sat quietly, no reaction, no notes, just focused breathing and attention. They weren't wrong, what they were doing did take years to polish. But when you've trained long enough, you also recognize when someone's putting on a show. I kept watching, memorizing, measuring. They were skilled, yes, but they'd already shown me more than they realized. "Warm-ups might be too much for you," Brad said with a laugh, waving toward the stretching students. "You should probably just watch. No need to risk injury on your first day." Carlos smirked. "Maybe try yoga, or that Tai Chi class for seniors at the community center. A little easier on the joints." More laughter. A few of the students glanced over, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. One girl didn't laugh at all. She stood closer to the edge of the mat, arms crossed, a green belt wrapped tight around her waist. Her eyes flicked between me and the instructors, and she looked bothered, like something wasn't sitting right. "There's a beginner's class on Tuesday nights," Carlos continued. "Mostly housewives trying to stay active. That might be more your pace." I took a breath and stayed calm. My fingers curled slightly in my lap, but I didn't let the tension reach my face. I'd heard all of this before. People like them saw what they wanted to see, a middle-aged woman with a low-ranking belt and a soft voice. That was enough for them to decide what I was capable of. "Would it be all right if I joined a light drill?" I asked, still calm. "Nothing too advanced, I just want to move a little." Brad raised an eyebrow. "We don't want you getting overwhelmed. We go pretty hard in here. One wrong step and you might pull something." Carlos added, "She's still trying, Brad. You've got to admire the spirit." A few students laughed again, but softer this time. That girl with the green belt didn't laugh at all. Her jaw tightened. She shifted her weight and took a small step forward. I nodded again, still polite, still steady. "Understood. Maybe I could do a short demonstration instead?" Everything paused for half a second. Carlos tilted his head like he didn't hear me right. Brad gave a slow, exaggerated smile. "A demonstration?" His voice was thick with sarcasm. "You want to show us something?" "Just something small," I said. "If I'm not ready, it should be obvious pretty quickly." Carlos looked amused, like someone had just handed him a free ticket to a comedy show. "Sure, why not? Let's see what the yellow belt's got." "All right, I'm in," I said, keeping my voice steady. "A friendly spar, nothing too intense." Brad's smirk widened. Carlos chuckled, clearly expecting to put me in my place quickly. I could feel the weight of their eyes, and the whole class watching. No matter, I wasn't here to prove anything to them, just to myself. I started by stretching my arms slowly, rolling my shoulders, loosening up my wrists. I moved with purpose but calm, like I knew exactly what I was doing. A few students shifted in their seats, their eyes flicking toward me, curiosity starting to spark. "Take your time," Brad said, stepping forward confidently. "This'll be over fast." I ignored his tone. Instead, I focused on grounding myself, sinking into a steady rhythm. I stretched one leg, then the other, bending and twisting gently to warm up every muscle. Each breath was controlled, slow, steady. The tension in the room was thick, but I kept my expression soft and focused. Carlos nodded to Brad, signaling him to start. Brad bounced lightly on his feet, cocky grin still in place. "Ready when you are," he said, hands loosely up but clearly ready to strike. I raised my hands calmly, meeting his gaze. "Ready," I said. He came forward fast, throwing a quick jab. I sidestepped smoothly, feeling the air as his fist passed by. I countered with a gentle tap to his shoulder, not hard enough to hurt, just a reminder I was here and alert. Brad's smile faltered for a moment. He attacked again, more aggressively. I blocked and shifted, moving with surprising ease. My movements were precise, flowing like water. No wasted energy, just smooth, practiced responses. The students around us started to lean forward, interest growing. Even Carlos was quiet now, watching closely. Brad lunged in with a kick. I caught it mid-air and gently pushed his leg aside, then stepped back. "Not bad," I said quietly. He grinned, more cautious now. "You're holding back." I shook my head. "Not yet." The spar continued, both of us testing each other carefully, but the confidence in his eyes had dimmed. It was clear this wasn't going to be as easy as he thought. I didn't expect Brad to take it lightly, but the moment I moved, his eyes flickered with surprise. I stepped forward faster than he thought I would, and my first strike landed right on his arm. He laughed, but it was a little forced, like he wasn't used to being caught off guard. He shook it off quickly, trying to regain that confident grin. "Not bad," he said, but I could tell he was a bit uneasy now. I kept my breathing steady and didn't give him a chance to settle. Brad attacked faster this time, his fists flying with more speed and power. I didn't panic, I just shifted my weight, dodging with smooth, minimal effort. Each move was precise, like I was flowing with the rhythm of the fight instead of fighting against it. Every time Brad lunged, I was already one step ahead, slipping away or blocking effortlessly. It wasn't just reflex, it was years of practice hidden beneath this calm exterior. I felt his frustration growing with every miss. I caught a glimpse of the other students watching. Their eyes were wide, whispers starting to float through the room. "She's good," I heard someone say. Another voice murmured, "No way, she moves like a pro." Brad's attacks became more aggressive, almost desperate. He swung harder, tried to trap me in a corner. But I stayed light on my feet, barely making a sound as I avoided his strikes. My hands moved like a shadow, quick and controlled. I saw him blink, just for a split second, and I took that moment to tap his chest lightly with an open hand. It wasn't a full strike, just a reminder. I was here and I wasn't going down easily. His smile wavered. "Okay," he said, breathing a bit heavier. "You're definitely not what I expected." I gave a small nod. "Neither are you." The room felt electric now, the tension thick. The whispers grew louder, curiosity turning into respect. Brad hesitated, and I could tell he was recalculating. He wasn't just fighting me, he was realizing he might be outmatched. That surprise, it was just the beginning. Brad's frustration was clear. His punches came faster, more forceful, but I stayed calm, waiting for my moment. I didn't need power, just clean, precise technique. Every block, every counter was about control, not brute strength. He lunged again, and I slipped inside his guard, twisting his wrist just enough to throw him off balance. He staggered, trying to steady himself, but I didn't press the attack. Instead, I stepped back, giving him space. I wanted to show I wasn't trying to hurt him, just outmaneuver him. The room got quiet, tension hanging thick. Brad's jaw clenched, eyes flashing with a mix of surprise and irritation. He hadn't expected me to hold my ground, let alone outclass him with simple, elegant moves. Suddenly, Carlos shouted from the side, his voice cutting through the silence. "Hey, let's take it easy," he said, stepping between us like he needed to break the tension. His tone was sharp, trying to cover Brad's slipping pride. Brad shot Carlos a look, a mix of relief and frustration. He didn't want to lose, and now Carlos was trying to save face for him. I could feel the shift in energy. Carlos was stepping in not because he thought I was too tough, but because Brad was starting to lose control. I stood still, watching them both, waiting. I didn't want to escalate things unnecessarily. This wasn't about proving I could beat Brad with force. It was about showing what control and skill looked like. Brad might have muscles and confidence, but I had years of practice beneath my calm exterior. Carlos gestured toward me, trying to smooth things over. "Come on, Amanda, no need to get rough here," he said. But I just smiled slightly. I wasn't here to rough anyone up. I was here to fight smart. Brad's face tightened as he looked at me again, the realization sinking in that he had underestimated me badly. This wasn't the easy challenge he thought it would be, and honestly, that was exactly how I wanted it. Carlos squared up, smirking like he thought he could take me down easy. All right, Amanda, let's see what you've got, he said, cocky and sure he was about to prove a point. I stayed relaxed, hands low but ready. When he moved in, I didn't waste time. One quick step, a small twist of his arm, and he was off balance before he even knew what happened. He stumbled, surprised, and barely caught himself. No struggle, just smooth, precise. He blinked, looking at me like I was some kind of trick. How did you do that? He asked, rubbing his wrist. I smiled softly and decided it was time to tell them everything. I've been training for over 20 years, I said plainly. I have multiple black belts in karate and judo. Their jaws dropped. No one had guessed. I looked around at the stunned faces. I wore the yellow belt on purpose, I added. I wanted to see how this dojo treats newcomers, to see if people judge by the belt or if they respect skill and effort. The silence was heavy. Sarah, who had been watching quietly, suddenly stepped forward. Why didn't you say anything before? She asked, eyes wide but curious. I wanted to be sure, I replied calmly. I needed to know if this place really welcomes everyone or just looks at the surface. I'm not here to show off, just to learn and maybe help others do the same. Sarah nodded slowly, respect growing in her eyes. Others started whispering, glancing at me with a new understanding. I wasn't just some beginner. I was someone who had been through it all, yet I chose to start fresh here. Carlos rubbed his neck, clearly humbled. Guess I underestimated you, he admitted. That's the lesson, I said. Don't judge a book by its cover, and don't challenge someone just because of their belt color. The mood shifted completely. What had started as a challenge turned into something else, a moment of respect and truth. It felt good to finally be seen for who I really was. Not just an innocent woman or a yellow belt, but a fighter with a story worth listening to. Sarah spoke up first, her voice steady but filled with frustration. This isn't the first time Brad and Carlos have judged someone unfairly here. I remember when Mrs. Thompson tried to join last year. She's in her 60s and they told her she was too old to keep up. The room murmured in agreement, some nodding quietly. Carlos looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight, but said nothing. Sarah continued, And what about little Mia? She's only 10, but she's one of the fastest learners here, yet every time she tries to spar, Brad tells her she's not strong enough. Like strength is the only thing that matters. I listened carefully, feeling the weight of what she was saying. It wasn't just about me or today's challenge. There was a pattern, a tendency to judge by appearances, by age, by gender, or by belt color. That kind of thinking had no place in martial arts. I spoke up. Martial arts should be about respect. It's about growing stronger, yes, but also about kindness and patience. We're here to support each other, not put each other down. I paused, looking around the room, making sure my words landed. If we keep judging people on the outside, we lose sight of what really matters. The spirit, the effort, the heart someone brings to the dojo. Sarah nodded in agreement, and a few others murmured quietly, a sense of understanding spreading. I won't stay here, I said calmly. Not because I don't want to learn from you, but because I don't want to be part of a place that doesn't fully respect everyone. There was a pause, and then I added, but I want to offer something different. If you're willing, I can help create a space where everyone feels welcome, no matter their age, gender, or belt. A place where respect is earned through effort and kindness, not just through skill or rank. Brad finally spoke, quieter than before. Maybe we've been too quick to judge, he admitted. Carlos nodded slowly, looking thoughtful. The energy in the room shifted. This wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about making the dojo better, stronger, a community built on respect and trust. I could see the change beginning. It won't be easy, but maybe this was the start of something new. A place where every fighter, no matter who they are, could feel they truly belong. Tomorrow morning, I told them all to meet me at the park if they wanted to train together. I wanted to create a place where everyone felt welcome, no matter their age, belt, or skill level. I hoped some of the students who had been judged unfairly would come. I wanted to show them that karate was more than just fighting. It was about respect, patience, and growth. When I arrived, I wasn't sure if anyone would show up. But one by one, familiar faces appeared. Sarah was there, looking determined and ready to learn. If you